Hey guys, welcome back. Sorry that I didn't post a video last week. I actually was out of internet for a few days after the hurricane came through. No internet, and then after the internet came back, I was not feeling good. Didn't have much of a voice, and so couldn't really record anything. My voice is still coming back, so I apologize for any audio issues. Okay, today what I want to talk about is a little bit more about game playability attributes. A lot of people have asked questions about those. There's a lot of confusion around those, which makes sense. They aren't simple. They aren't numbers. And the reason that we're going to talk about this is because we need to figure out how to get our stats in our mobs, right? For our characters, we've got the character data stored over in OWS, and when we load up our player, it automatically gets that data, and it initializes our attribute set for our player, and we're all good. But for our mobs, that doesn't work. You can't connect the mob to the character, so you have no way to pull that data, and it just doesn't work out. And it's like, well, how can we set our mob stats? And so we're going to be looking at how we can do that. First, I want to talk a little bit about attributes because they confuse a lot of people. And I'm actually going to switch over to another project here where I've already been playing with it. Apparently it's not that one. Pull this one over. Okay. So what I set up here is a really simple gameplay ability where we get our character and we commit the ability. They're just doing that because we have to. And then we basically pull this float attribute from ability and float attribute base from ability. And we print out the values. Say, hey, what are these? And we call them pre-change value. Then we apply a gameplay effect, and then we check the values again to see what happened. Okay? So we're gonna run that, try to show kind of how it works. Because here's the way that it's meant to be used. And this is where people get confused. So you have these attributes, health, strength, stamina, all these different, there's a huge list of probably, 50 attributes that you can use. And these are inside the gameplay ability system, and they look like they're numbers, but they're not. They're not numbers. They're actually streams of numbers, okay? It's not a single number. And the reason they do this is that it helps facilitate client prediction and also replication, because when you apply a gameplay effect to change your strength, it doesn't change the underlying strength. It just says, okay, your strength was 10, and we've added 5, and it doesn't change the 10 to a 15. Instead, it just says we have a 10 and a 5. And then every time that you want to get that value, it goes and looks through the whole list of all of them and goes, okay, I got a 10, I got a 5, I'm going to return 15. And so that also is what's happening here. If you say to get the float attribute from the ability system component, it rolls up all those values. So it's got the base 10 plus the 5 we've added, you'll get 15. But if you do this get float attribute base, you'll actually just get that base unmodified value that was initialized when the game began. And so this is important because you can't modify the value. So what a lot of people have asked me is they're like, well, I need to modify the strength. I need to make the strength more. I put on a piece of armor and I need the strength to go up. Or the character leveled up and I need the strength to go up. And they're like, why can't I set the value? It's like, no, you can't set the value. One of the rules of gameplay abilities is you can't set the values of the attributes. All you can do is add or subtract, basically adding them to the end of the string. And here's why some people have gotten confused. You can pull off your character and you can get OWS attributes, and you can actually do set strength. And so a lot of people have mistakenly like, well, look, I can do it. I can set the value. And I'm going to show you in a minute what happens. So first of all, I've got this gameplay effect here called test gameplay effect. We're going to go take a look at that here real quick. So I just built one real simple. The duration policy is infinite. Okay, we've got instant, infinite, has duration. Infinite are very useful when you say, hey, I need to make a change to, in this case, strength, and I want it to last until I tell you otherwise. So this could be, this test gameplay effect here, could be that we've put on some armor and it gave us strength. And I'm actually going to change this value here. I have it set to 10. I'm going to change it to 5. So we're gonna say that this gameplay effect here is us putting on armor that has 5 strength, right? And we could sit here, these modifiers, we could sit here and add another one. You know, we've got the 5 strength. We could say, oh, you know what? We want to also set the dexterity, and we could add a value to that, and we could do all these different things. So this gameplay effects are how you modify attributes. They're also the only way you can modify attributes. If you want to modify the attributes, you have to add a gameplay effect. It may sound complicated and overly complicated, but that's part of how this system works. And it's actually the only way that it works. With the exception of something I'm going to show you later, but that's only for initializing the initial values, not for changing them after the game has started running. Okay, so we've got our gameplay effect here that's going to add 5, right? Add 5. Okay, so we have these pre-change values that are printed and these post-change values that are printed. I've got this connected to the V key, and I'm going to go to the output log, and we're going to test this. And we press the V key, and I'm going to stop this. I'm going to scroll up, and here is what happened. So first of all, it ran on the client, and you see the pre-change value was 10, and the pre-change base was 10. The post-change value is 15 because we added 5 to strength, and the post-change base is still 10 because that's still the base underlying value, and the 5 is a modifier on top of that. The pre-change value on the server, again, it does it the same. So anytime you run a gameplay ability, it runs on the owning client first, then it sends it up to the server and runs it on the server. It does not run on any proxy clients. You have to manually replicate the end results. So there we go. You can see what happened, right? That's what we expected to happen. But let's go and let's swap this and let's remove this gameplay effect and let's try to set strength to 15. Right? So now in effect we should get the same thing where it should be 10 at the start and then we set it to 15, and so, you know, let's see what happens. And so press the V key and look at that. It didn't change anything. And that's because you can't change the values. It doesn't accept it. And so I'm going to go remove that. So don't, even though you see that you can grab this OWS attributes and try to set them here, don't do it. It won't do anything. It has no effect. So that brings us to the question now. I'm going to actually close this project and open back up our project. Okay, so now that leads us to the question, how can we get some stats into this mob? How are we going to do this? And so what we can do here is we can go find our mob. Okay, so here's our mob. And what we can do, let's see here, we want to grab our ability system. And there is a function called init stat. So look at that. And we're going to do a test here. So we're going to change strength. So let's, off this ability system, get attribute. Remember, we're not interested in the base one, we're just interested in the rolled up one. And we're going to get our strength. We'll do an append. Starting strength. And then we'll basically have the same thing again after we init the stats. And we'll say after init stats. And we got to connect that to the ability system. Okay, so let's take a look at what this init stats requires. It is looking for an attribute set to update. Okay, so we'll set it to AWS attribute sets. And then it's looking for a data table. Okay, so we're going to need a data table. So let's come up here to ability system. And we'll make a new folder. Mob stats. And let's see, we're going to make, so I think it's under miscellaneous, data table. And we're looking for this attribute metadata. See that? Attribute metadata. And we're going to call this, let's see, rampage mob 1 stats. Okay, so what we can do is we can come here. I can add a row called strength, and then we can set these values. So we're going to set this to like, let's see, a value like, he's pretty strong. Let's do 13. I'll say the minimum value is 1 to like 20, I guess. Okay, and we could go and keep adding rows. Actually, let's do that. So we can have a second one here. And so set his health. And maybe we'll do like 150. 0, I guess, to like 200 maybe. Okay. And so now if we come back over here, that Rampage Mob 1 stats is available. Okay. So this, this here, unlike where we were trying to just directly set the value, this has all the extra code needed to go and properly initialize the initial values. And so it's able to do that through these values here that it loads in the data table, and it matches them up to the values in the attribute set. And if we're looking for what values are in the attribute set, of course we can do get AWS attributes, and you can do set. You can see all the ones here. So these are all the ones that are available. You just got to have to match the name after set here. We'll just match the name exactly. And those are the things that you can set. And so you can basically create a data table for each one of your mob starting stats. And then, you know, you could potentially have what we could do here. Actually, let's do this because I like this idea. Mob stats data table of type data table. And we'll expose that. And we'll set it that way. And we can come here and we could change it per mob. So what that actually means we could do, well, yeah, we've got a mob spawner that's spawning it, so we'll actually have to end up doing is having it so that our mob spawner copies those over and runs it, which we can take a look at. But to begin with, let's check this out. Let's see what happens when this mob spawns. Let's watch this starting strength and after init stat strength. Now there's a possibility that we're running this in the wrong place. So we may have to move this code to somewhere else, but let's give it a try and see what happens. I didn't test this one in advance, so anything could happen. There he is. Okay. Perfect. And it's stat strength. Oh, nope, that's not perfect. Okay, strength is 0. And it's pulling a 10 there. I thought we set it to 13, so let's go take a look. But that looks good. It's on the server. Let's go fix this one here while we're at it, because I don't like this. Update animation. We've got to divide by 0. Let's go fix this real quick. This one's been annoying me. So we're going to go into Paragon Rampage. Remember, this was not a AnimBP that we built. This one was just built by Epic. And I think what happens here is somewhere, go back to here, divide by 0, update animation. Yeah, so it's like there's a divide by 0 in here. Update animation. Let's look for some division. Well, that wouldn't update. That wouldn't divide by 0 because it's a fixed value. Here we go, though. But this one would. Delta time x. Well, that was dumb. But yeah, that definitely looks like what's happening. Okay, well, what we can do is we can come here and we can put a branch. This is what's going to pull that value. Finterp, it's going to pull it through these. And we can basically say, I think that's the only division, yeah. We basically say, hey, if there's not a valid delta time, so then do that. Otherwise, just skip setting that value. It's not important enough. Wait, hold on, what's happening here? Oh, it goes to here. And here. That's super confusing. Yeah, we didn't build this one. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. But anyway, what we're going to check here is delta time is greater than 0. Okay, let's see if that makes that error go away, because that one bothers me. Sometimes it just keeps repeating too. Okay, I feel a little bit better, but we didn't get exactly what we were looking for there. Alright, so we got a knit stats of a strength 10, and we were really looking for... so let's take a look at what we've got. So, strength... Make sure I spelled it right. Strength, okay. We've got a 13 here. So let's come back to our mob. And strength is what we were doing, so for some reason it did not set that value. Yeah, it's possible that we're doing it too early, which is what I think is happening, and it's getting overwritten. 10 is the underlying, in the constructor, underneath, for some default values, 10 is the default value. So we're probably doing it too early. Now we're not going to leave this, but temporarily, what would happen if we were to delay this about a second? This can help us figure out that we need to move it to somewhere else, if this gives us a different result. So it's already at 10 in its stats. It didn't do anything. Okay. Yeah, so that was interesting though too, by having that delay, the starting strength was already 10, so it had already gotten to the point where it was setting that. And this is running on server. And we are setting the OWS attributes. Let's take a look. Okay, stats. Let's see. I did run through a test of this a few days ago on a different in the starter project. Someone was asking about it. Let's see. So we have this RPG initialization complete. And this is often a good one to pull off of. Make sure it runs here. Oh, it's mob controlled. Forgot to set that before. Okay. Did we get our... Let's see. Spawn mob. Yeah, that initialization complete doesn't fire because it only fires for it only fires for players, which is problematic. Yeah. May have to rework that somewhat. Okay. So we can't use that one. And it doesn't appear to be a timing issue here. I'm going to stop the video real quick, and I'm going to go take a look at the open world starter project that I had set this up in. I didn't think I was going to run into any issues here, but we'll figure it out. I'll be back. Okay, so there were a few things that I missed here. So first of all, we need to update to the latest plugin, which you can see here, 2018-1020. And so I have closed it down, and I've grabbed the latest plugin here. We're going to do it the same way we always do it. Come into the plugins, delete OWS plugin, back to here. We'll navigate into the plugins folder, grab this OWS plugin, right click, copy, navigate back to our plugins folder, and paste. Okay, and now let's open it back up. And there was one other thing that I was doing incorrectly, which I will show you. It's an easy mistake to make. It's just a little typo, but it will stop. It will stop init stats from working. Okay, so now it's fine. We won't restore. I'll load all this up. Okay, so here's where, and I've already updated them here, but here's where the problem was. So remember how I put strength and health? The problem is that you actually have to preface it with OWS attribute set dot. Now the reason that they do this is that we're just using one attribute set, but the way the game playability system was designed to be used, you can have lots of attribute sets. And so you can kind of mix and match them for different things, like, you know, maybe every type of, you know, mob in the game has this certain set of stats, but then certain ones have some extra stats or some extra important things, or maybe there's an attribute set because we have, and we're going to take a look at this actually. Somebody asked me about it. We'll take a look at it. We're going to look at how Fortnite does their destructible, you know, walls, and they actually do it with the game playability system. They put the game playability system on whatever it is that they're, you know, breaking. In our case, we're going to have harvestable trees, and we're going to put a attribute set onto the tree so that we can chop it down. And so we'll have to have a different attribute set. So anyway, the reason here that it didn't work is that I did not have OWS attribute set dot in front of it. So you have to have the full path name, including the attribute set dot, and that's why it wasn't working. In addition to that, let's go back to our mob. In addition to that, we have this is mob controlled here, but we have this new one here called is a mob. And so we have to check this, and what that's going to let us do is get that, what I wanted down here, but wasn't able to use. RPG, on RPG initialization complete. This is an important one because it waits until everything is initialized. And normally, prior to what we just updated with this, normally if this was a mob, it wouldn't get called. It only got called on human players, which is problematic because we really want to take all this stat setting stuff that shouldn't have been up there and shouldn't have needed a delay. We'll dump this delay, and really should have been down here. RPG initialization complete. So basically what has happened here is that by setting this is a mob, instead of going out and trying to make a call to the database to get the values, which would obviously fail for mobs because they have no character name, instead what happens is that it just calls this directly after all the rest of the good stuff is done. So, okay, let's give it a try now. See if we're walking, hopefully walking in the right direction. Oh. Let's see, did he get called? Oh. Interesting. I just tested this over on the other one, and it worked. But I'm not seeing it getting called. Let's double check what we got. RPG initialization complete. This was the value that enables it. That was for something else. I'll have to take a look at that in the next thing. Let me move this back to where it was, so we can at least show this working. I'll pull it back down here, and I'll add that delay. We'll, in the next video, we'll come and get it hooked up to the RPG initialization complete down there. Probably something simple I'm missing. I don't want to stop the video again, though. Okay, so now we're doing the same thing again, and remember the value was 13 was what we were looking for, not 10. And so now we run into the range. And look at that. See, so the starting value is 10, which is the one that came from the constructor. And then after in its stats, it set it to 13. So what that will now let us do is we can actually, we've got it initializing. We can come in here into our mob stats. We can go through and set all the rest of them so that we got our health at 150. And, we can come in here and set some additional ones. I don't know what else is. We'll have to take a look in the future and see what all is being used. I think strength is being used by our mob to decide how hard it hits. So that's probably actually doing something. I don't think our dexterity is changing the speed at which it moves. That's something we'll have to we'll have to fix soon to try to get that working better. And then obviously, the health is how much health we would have to do to kill it. So that's going to be important. And we probably should have set probably need to set this max health to go along with it. So let's add another one here. Yep, see, I almost did it again. OWS attribute set. Make sure that it looks good. Full thing. Okay, and we'll set that to 150. I guess those are the same. Fine as the other. Looks good. And just to see if this is working here, let's go set this to 200. And then it should make us see a 3/4. And I'm not wild about it being nighttime while we're testing. So if you remember, we added the time of day. We added this test offset. So let's go undo that offset there back to 0, and I think it'll get us to daytime. It did. Okay, so now we should be seeing a not full health. Oh, there we go. See, that was because after a second. So you see that? After it gets recreated. So that was because we now set the max health to 200 and the actual health to 150, so it's at 3/4 health. In the next video, we'll get it using that RPG initialization, and we won't see that ugly 1 second delay in there. But so now at least we have a way to control our stats. And I think the last thing we want to take a look at here is our mob spawner. So what we'd really like to do is have our data table set on our mob spawner. So mob stats data table. And we'll do a data table. And then we'll expose that. And what that should let us do is that when we spawn the mob on the server here, yeah, so what we should be able to do is be able to set mob stats data table. And we can set that to this data table here. So what that'll let us do is now we can come here and we can find our mob spawner and we can set it right here. So it's which mob to spawn, right? But we can come here, rampage mobs 1 stats. So now we can say, hey, that's the guy that's spawning here. And we could create a few different versions of these, and we could drop some more spawners all over the place, and there could be easier ones and harder ones, and we can control our stats. So that, make sure it's still working. Yep. And so that's a way that we can now control our mob stats independently of the way that our character is pulling their stats from the database, which is not something that we're doing. That's something we're doing for the mobs. And so I think that's where we're gonna end off today. I'll go take a look at why that RPG initialization thing isn't working. It was just working on the starter project, so I'm probably missing something simple. But I think we're good. Until next time, see ya.